Hello and welcome to Photographic Connections, the podcast where we create connection to self, nature and others through the art of photography. My name is Kim Grant, the founder of Photographic Connections and your host for this podcast. And today, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Nigel Danson onto the podcast. Nigel is a landscape photographer, best known for his YouTube channel, where he shares his landscape photography journey and editing technique with his worldwide audience. We speak about how he gave up his role as a CEO of his own company to pursue his passion for photography, as well as how photography and nature helps him with his back issues, and why he intends for his work to be more project-based moving forwards. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Nigel Danson. Hi Nigel, thank you so much for coming on the podcast this week. It's an absolute delight to be able to connect with you because we've of course known each other for a number of years now, sort of virtually through YouTube, and we've had a little bit of conversations over Instagram, but we've never had the chance to sit down and actually talk. So it's a real delight today to actually get the chance to sit down and speak with you. And like with everyone that comes on this podcast, the first thing I like to do before we get into chatting about everything else is to get you to go right back to the beginning of your photography journey and tell the story of what made you pick up a camera for the first time.
Yeah, so I probably can't remember the exact moment I picked up the camera for the first time. It was quite young, so I think I was 13, and I'd always struggled at school, so I wasn't very good at school, and I only found out a lot later in life actually that I was quite badly dyslexic, so I can't read very well, like really badly. So I think I've only read one book ever in my life. I've now learnt to write pretty well but it takes a long time, and I just avoid reading. So as a kid, I just loved photos, and anything with a photo book would be great. And as soon as I picked up a camera, I think it was my dad's camera, I started taking photos, and I remember getting them back just being so excited. And it's sort of, some people probably get connected to words and books, but I just got so excited by this process. And then I got a little brownie camera actually, which was just like a film camera that was absolutely rubbish. It's like pretty much a pinhole camera. I took loads of really rubbish photos for years and years, and then I then really got into it about probably 19, I think, when I got a darkroom and I started processing my own black and white films, and I did black and white photography then for about 8 years, I think. Where I never did any colour whatsoever. Everything I did was black and white, and that was just fantastic. I absolutely loved it.
Brilliant. You've kind of gone through a process there, haven't you? I think a lot of people speak about how particularly their family kind of get them into photography from a young age, and it seems to be there's this continued almost theme coming up. A lot of people seem to be quite influenced by their fathers who had cameras and did photography, and then they got into it. And it's interesting to hear that you began in the black and white area, because you don't do that much black and white photography now, do you?
No. It's funny actually, because I actually do. I've got like a whole portfolio of black and white photos, but I've never shared any of them. They're sort of personal to me, and I keep thinking to myself, should I share them? Should I do something with them? But I just sort of want to keep them to myself, really. So yeah, I don't think I've hardly ever shared any black and white photos. I love. If I was to choose, I would always choose colour. I actually love colour photography now. And because I did it for so long, I think what was really good with the black and white photography was that it really helped me with just understanding light and shapes and, just general basics of composition as well, which I think with colour photography, it can get, you can be a little bit disappointed because you get overawed by all the colours, and you go and take a landscape and then you think that's going to look amazing, but you forget about the basics of composition and light and shade, and then the colours don't work. They don't hold the photo together on their own. So I think it's more complex taking colour photos than it is black and white photos. So starting and learning from that, and doing nothing but black and white was really useful for me, I think.
It's really interesting because I completely bypassed black and white photography when I began, because I was just so drawn into like sunsets and the colour of nature. And but I'm realizing I'm kind of going back on myself now and doing a bit of black and white now, because I'm realizing how much it can teach you about composition, as you say, light and shadows. And it's definitely, I think, a good advice there for people that are getting into photography to give black and white a go. It might not be something that you particularly enjoy, like the sort of element of it, you might prefer colour, of course, but actually, like you say, it does allow you to piece together those things. And I find it really interesting, actually, that you do a bit of black and white, but you don't share it, because especially with you being on YouTube, it must be quite difficult at times. I know I find it difficult to have these projects outside of YouTube that you kind of do for yourself, and this work you do for yourself that you don't then share. So it's really nice actually to hear that you have this kind of black and white thing going on in the background, but it's not something you're openly sharing with people.
Yeah, I think it's nice sometimes to do. One of my things this year actually was to do more project-based things, and that might be projects that I share, like the Spirit of Luskin Tire that I did, or it might be a project that I do for myself where I do a lot of macro photography that I never share, a lot of black and white photography that I never share. And when I do black and white photography, I'd go out and do black and white photography. I never look at my portfolio and think, oh, that'll look good in black and white, because I just don't think that works really. I think you've got to go out specifically with the intention of taking a black and white photo, because you've got to think what's going to work correctly for that black and white image, and it's a very different thought process than color. What is really useful is a phone, and you can just put it into a black and white mode, and you can then see the world in black and white through your phone, which makes it so much easier than when I did it. So that's a good tip really if you're trying to do it.
It's great that you get the time to still go out and do these things as well, because I've listened to you a few times over the years speaking about how much time you put into your YouTube channel specifically, and your editing of your videos as well as filming them. So it's amazing that between everything you're doing with YouTube and everything else you've got going on, that you still have time to go out and do stuff just purely for your own enjoyment.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to find time for yourself, haven't you? I mean, I have to admit that over the last probably 3 or 4 years, bar 2 back operations last year, which did put me out for a long time, but I have really dedicated a lot of time to my YouTube channel and my photography and growing the business, I suppose. And weekends just merge into one for me. There's no differentiation, and because my kids are older now and I don't spend as much time with them, that I did when they were young, that's much easier for me really. I need to spend more time with my wife. That's quite important, obviously. but I'm now trying to think about my weekends as my own time, and not really trying to not do too much with YouTube. But I just enjoy it so much. I mean, I literally, I'm passionate about it. It honestly never feels like a job. I literally have to pinch myself that I can make money from doing this. I still can't believe it.
It is amazing, isn't it? And you touched there a little bit about your project where you went to Luskin Tire, and you could really see in that project specifically your love and your elation and your joy of just being there. Every day you were going out and seeing something different, and even in the bad weather with all the wind and everything, you were just so you were just so appreciative and had so much gratitude to the fact that you were there, and you could just see how much you loved it. I'd love you to speak a little bit about that project, because what you produced from that, both the imagery and the 3 final episodes that you created, it was just incredible. And the weather and the scenes and everything you had there, you had everything. You had the Northern Lights and everything. It was amazing.
I mean, I don't think I'll ever do anything like that again. I mean, it was a funny, going back to the start, it was a funny idea really, because I just thought, I decided that this year I was going to start doing more project-based thing. Because what you tend to do with YouTube is you think, oh, I need to do a YouTube video. You go somewhere, you take some photos, you must know, and then you produce a video about it. And it tends to be, I wouldn't say rushed, but I'm never happy when I export it and upload it to YouTube. There's always something more I could do on it, or I think, if I just had more time I could have done that. But I want to get a video out every month, every week, And so I do it. But this one, I thought, right, I'm really going to spend a lot of time trying to do something that was a project. And I thought, what can I do? And I thought, oh, it'd be good to spend a couple of weeks just photographing the same area. And then I thought, a beach would be good. And then I thought of Luskentyre Beach because I thought there'd be lots of different things to shoot there. And then I thought, if I'm going to do 2 weeks, I might as well do a month. So I got a pass from my wife, which ended up being more than a month because I've got a really bad back. So driving my car is so difficult. So it took me 3 days to get up there and two and a half days to get back. I had a mattress in the back of my car. So that, you know, if need be, I could unload everything and lie on my mattress, which I had to do once. So it was really hard to actually get there. But it was just, I thought what would happen, I thought that you're so stupid, Nigel. What's going to happen is after 4 days, you're going to be on the Isle of Harris and Lewis, and you want to go and photograph all the other places there. But that just didn't happen. I mean, it was so good. It was so refreshing not just being able to walk from my cottage to the beach every day and just see these things change and be so transient. And I'm thinking about it now, I get goosebumps because I literally loved it. I've never experienced anything like it. It was one of the best things I've ever done in my life. And yeah, I got lucky with the weather. I mean, I didn't realize at the time that, like at the beginning, it was really windy and the waves were breaking and there was an offshore wind against the waves, creating the really nice backwash of the waves. And Rick was there for that first week. And I said to Rick, I better get some wave shots just in case we won't get this again. I remember Rick saying, we'll definitely get this again. You know, it's going to be windy again, isn't it? And I never got those same conditions again. And that was a story of the trip, really. There was never 2 days that were the same. And to be able to see the same beach so transient was so amazing. And then the aurora was almost funny, the aurora, because it was just like, I mean, people were following along on Instagram, but I couldn't have written it. I mean, it was just ridiculous that how strong the aurora was in Scotland. As you probably know, you don't get an aurora that strong very often.
Yeah, incredible. It was, yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed watching the episodes you created from that trip because it was just, like you say, forever changing. And I found it really fascinating because there's a beach near me, now that I've just moved back to Murray, that I've been photographing for years. And I've always considered doing a little project about it. It's a lot smaller than Luskin Tire, but weirdly, like a lot of people are very drawn to Luskin Tire. A lot of photographers, artists, painters, all creatives are drawn to Luskin Tire. And it's the same with this beach near me. It's just full of creative people that live there and get drawn to it. And I've always thought about doing this kind of project, whether it's a week long or whatever, or whether it's just all my images from over the years, because there's something very mesmerising about the coast particularly, because it's constantly changing with the tides, as well as the weather and the moods. And you can definitely see that with what you created there at Luskin Tire. It was just phenomenal. And yeah, I don't know how you've managed to narrow down your images for the book that you've now produced, because you took so many images. How was that process?
Oh my word, it was so difficult. I mean, luckily at the end of every day, because I was really tired during the day. I mean, I knew that doing it in the winter was going to be good from the light perspective, the fact that I might get snow, but I also wanted to do it during the winter because the sunrise and sunset were more manageable, and I wanted to be able to shoot both of them every day. But what I hadn't sort of figured out, that over that month the day got 2 hours longer because sunrise was an hour earlier and sunset was an hour later. So that as the month went on, I just got more tired basically. But what I tried to do in the evening was look at my images and try and just pick in Lightroom the ones that I thought were worth editing. It was never going to be possible for me to edit them when I was there, and my editing process takes a long time usually. So if I've got good images, then it takes me like a month to edit them because I have to keep going back to them and refining them. So then I had out of all the photo images that I'd taken, I can't tell you how many I took because I'm going to do a quiz for it and a giveaway to guess. But I'll tell you, out of all the images that I took, I shortlisted it to 1,000 images. So I had 1,000 images that I thought were decent, and then I had to get that down to I think I had 84 in my book that I produced. So that was really hard, because it wasn't just like, if I chose my 84 best images, they will have probably been of a similar area, because there was one area that I probably took more good images than other areas. But I wanted the book to be the different areas of the beach. The beach is like a mile and a bit long, and I wanted it to be the different areas of the beach. So it was trying to choose a selection from each area that represented the whole month that I was there, was very difficult. But I think the book's really good. I'm really pleased with how it's come out. It got printed last week, so it goes to the binders now, and I think it goes out in July to all the pre-orders. And also, I was a little bit surprised at how many people bought that book, because I thought that maybe it was not going to be as popular. But it's been way more popular than all my other books, which just really surprises me. But I think it's probably because the videos were so engaging. I don't think I've got feedback on any other videos as good as I had on these sort of trio of videos. But me and Rick I think Rick spent 100 hours editing them. And I think I spent about 100 hours editing my photos for the video. So it was a ridiculous amount of work.
That's possibly why the books have done so well, because people have seen how much time and effort you've put into that. And I think when you put a lot of time and effort into something, people really appreciate it, because they then can see actually how much, like you say, time you were out there and how much preparation went into that. And yeah, they have that connection with it, because they've been watching along on it as well. Because obviously when people like your work, there's like that liking the photographer and their portfolio type thing with books, but when there's actually a story and like a whole series that goes along with it, like you say, it definitely adds to that connection. One
of the things that I think's really important, and that's why I wanted to do more project-based things, is that I feel like photography it's really a storytelling medium. It can tell an emotion, it can tell a story of a location, the story of the weather, but it's to tell a story. But I felt that, and I don't think this is necessarily entirely the case, but I felt like my photography was getting to the point where I was just producing a YouTube video every week, and it was being driven by that. And I wanted to sort of stand away from that a little bit and have my love of photography and the outdoors to drive my YouTube channel, which it did at the beginning, and then I think it sort of lost its way a little bit, and I wanted to get back to that, because I feel like that's, like you say, when people are more engaged, and I think that it's just more interesting for me. It just produces a much more fulfilling, complete product at the end, really, whether that be a video, a book, a set of photos, or whatever. And I'm going to have an exhibition as well from it, and I'm going to do that locally, which I've not announced actually, so but I'll probably do that in September, and it'll just be a local thing that I don't expect a huge amount of people to come to it, but I just want to do it for myself, just to be able to sort of frame the images, and I feel like that's just like a really good end to it.
Brilliant. I think when you put so much effort into a project, it's nice to have all these things that come off of it, because it keeps it going, doesn't it? And it really allows that time and effort to be really, really worthwhile. You touched there about your love for nature, and I wanted to kind of delve into this a little bit, because part of Photographic Connections is developing this connection to nature. And I kind of wondered, where did your love for nature first come from?
I think I'm sure my age now, but I grew up when there was no, obviously, devices, there was no internet. I mean, to say there's no internet just seems ridiculous, doesn't it? But there was no internet, so there was no like distractions. And my dad was a builder, and we had quite a big amount of land around our house, and I basically spent all my childhood falling out of trees, building things in nature, and just being outside. And then I got really into walking in the Lake District, and before I did photography, when I was young actually, so I was doing photography, but I wasn't doing it seriously, but I was walking. And then I just really enjoy. I've always really enjoyed, just as far as long as I can remember, really just being out and walking, and I just love being outdoors.
It's interesting. Almost everybody I speak to about this, there's always this goes back to their childhood connection with nature, and it really shows the importance, I think, of people that have children, to give them that connection to nature from an early age, especially now more than ever, because of course, you know, devices and that have kind of taken over massively. But yeah, your story definitely fits with mine a little bit there. Although we had the beginnings of internet when I was younger, like I never really stayed indoors and watched TV or did anything like that. I was always out building dens, running around at the beach, swimming in the sea. It was and that, I think, is where my love for nature has come from as well. So it's really important, I think, as well, because it just gives you that release as well, and when you can combine it with creativity, it's such a powerful thing.
Oh, it's just amazing, isn't it? It's just amazing. And I do think, like, I enjoy going out in nature without my camera as well. So, like, whenever I walk my dog, which is pretty much every day, so when I go out with Pebbles, I never take my camera. I always just try and sort of immerse myself in nature. And sometimes I'll go to a location like a woodland that I might want to scout out or something, but I'll still never take my camera. I'll just go and have a look at it, rather than and try and observe it, because sometimes I think a camera can stop you seeing things. One of the top tips that I've got whenever I run a workshop is just put your camera, your tripod on the ground, and don't, the tripod's, I think, the biggest benefit and hindrance to a photographer.
It's interesting, yeah, just like putting it down and just looking around you. Definitely, that's one thing I always do in my workshops as well. I kind of say just take 10 minutes or so to tune into the environment before you even take your camera out, because you kind of need that connection before you do anything. And of course, one thing you speak about quite a lot on your YouTube channel is taking an apple with you and just sitting and eating your apple before you even get out your camera, which is a fantastic tip. Yeah. One thing I wanted to delve into a little bit is you've touched on this already, but is your back, because I get quite a lot of people speaking to me about the fact that they have back issues, and it often stops them getting out with their camera because, of course, it's a very painful thing, and mobility can sometimes be an issue. But I really find with you and your back problems that, one, I think you just seem to have this release in nature that you're able to get out, and it almost helps with it, but you've also managed to create ways of dealing with your back pain that allows you to still get out and immerse yourself in your photography and the things that you love. So yeah, if you're happy to, I'd love you to delve a little bit into your back problems and stuff. And yeah.
So I mean, my back issues are fairly serious. So I started having a bad back when it was probably about 12 years ago, I think now. I was speaking to my wife about it actually yesterday. Yeah, I think it's 12 years ago. And I used to run quite a bit. And my kids don't believe me about that, by the way, because I don't think they've ever seen me run. But I used to run quite a lot. So I didn't, not seriously, but I did some 5Ks and 10Ks, and I ran probably 2 or 3 times a week. And then I started feeling like I had numb feet at the end of my running, and I just didn't understand why, and I didn't think anything of it. But I had to stop running because it was just like quite painful as well. And I thought it was my shoes, and tried different shoes and whatever. But then at the same time, I started to realize that I couldn't sit in some cars, and my back was starting to hurt. And that sort of got worse and worse and worse, and just got to the point where I just couldn't sit down for long periods of time, and like on a sofa would be very painful. So I don't think I've sat on a sofa now for 6 years. Literally haven't sat on the sofa for 6 years. So because it's just excruciatingly painful, and it's always painful when I'm sat down. But it got to the point where they thought they'd found the problem, which was these big cysts in my back that were the size of sort of half the size of a golf ball, effectively. And they had 3 of them in the base of my back. Now, other people can have those, and they can not have been not symptomatic. But there was a surgeon in London that thought that was causing the problem. And so that's when I had surgery on it last year. And that went wrong, unfortunately. So the surgery removed the cysts, but they created a massive tear in my spinal column, which leaked out lots of fluid. So I had another operation to try and mend that, but the tear was too big and they can't mend it. So now I've just got a cyst the size of my fist in my back. So I've gone from these small ones to this absolutely huge one, which means that, it's really bad. And there is an operation I can have now to try and relieve the symptoms of that by reducing the pressure in my brain and spine. But that involves putting a tube from my brain into a valve in my stomach, and I think I'm probably not going to have that done because there's quite a lot of risks like meningitis around that because I've got a CSF leak. So I'm in pain, and it's, I deal with it, and this is the important thing. If you let it engulf you, the pain, and sometimes I just have to be in a dark room and lie down because it is so painful. But if you let it engulf you, then it just becomes a little bit, it spirals out of control. And what I find, and this might be different for everybody else, but if I move, that definitely helps me. So if I stay active, and I am lucky in this particular back issue that I can't carry anything particularly heavy on my back, but I can hike reasonable distances. Even after my operation, I can hike reasonable distances. I can't stand still for very long, so what I tend to do, like on the beach, when I was standing around, I just led on the beach quite a lot, and I lie in the forest or I lie on a mountain, because lying down's pretty good, and I just deal with it basically. But the key thing is that just doing something like photography and being out in nature are really healing. They really help to deal with pain, and I think that's, it's very hard to say that to somebody because it's sort of counterintuitive, I think, because you think the best thing to deal with it is just to relax at home and take it easy. But I know if I do that, in fact, the really hardest thing for me is when I'm at home for like a week, because I really struggle with that because my pain levels just get worse and worse and worse. And I mean, it's not just a pain level thing. My legs go numb, and I start to lose feeling in my right leg. So that gets quite worrying because then that means that I can't walk. So I've just got to be really careful about how much pressure gets put on this nerve. And I just deal with it. But it's really crap, to be honest, because I avoid going out for meals. I avoid, sometimes I can't sit and eat my meals in the evenings because by the evenings it gets really painful. I avoid any social situations because when I'm in pain I don't really want to talk to people. So it is really hard, but I manage to deal with it.
Gosh, it's a lot there, isn't it? 'Cause, you do speak about your back issues quite a lot on your channel, but when you actually sit down and really talk through the whole thing there and exactly what all your issues are, it's I think it's incredible that you are still able to get out and do what you do. And you did mention there that getting out and doing photography, and especially that connection to nature, really helps you. And it's amazing because there's a lot of studies that have been done into nature, and that shows that things like being around moving water and being in the forest can reduce inflammation and stuff naturally, just this connection to nature. And I think just listening to you there speak about
I believe that.
Yeah, you can totally see that, can't you? Because when you speak about being at home there, it's like everything sort of constricts and you get kind of almost worse. And then when you actually take that time to go out, it's like something relieves you in some way, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, it's just, especially running water. You hit them. My favourite thing is just walking through a woodland with running water and early birds singing a cuckoo in the spring or something. That's just heaven.
Definitely. It really does show that healing benefits 100%. No, it's amazing. It really is. And with regards to your YouTube channel, I think we'll kind of almost finish off with speaking a little bit about YouTube. Is, you've had so much, I don't know if I want to say success, because I don't feel like we can kind of maybe call it success, because it's kind of like a creative process, isn't it? But you've achieved quite a lot with your YouTube channel since you began, and it's amazing to see your kind of growth on there and the things that you've created there. And that's kind of where your photography journey from a kind of professional standpoint all began. So what do you think it was initially that drew you to YouTube as a medium to showcase your work?
Yeah, so along with photography, I've always made videos. So, I had like a cassette camcorder, and I used to, when I was at university, me and my friend Steve, we used to make stupid videos. So I've got like videos as of doing an upside down table, and where we tried to have our breakfast on the table upside down, and just like really, really stupid things. This was before any social media was around. We just did these videos just for our own fun. And so I've always made videos, mostly stupid videos. And if somebody dug them up, they'd laugh so much because they are so funny, but they're so cringy as well. But I've always done videos, so I've always been into that media of videography. And then when I was in San Francisco, because I ran a software company, and I decided. I had an accident when I was in San Francisco. I'm not the best in terms of my fitness. I've just been really unlucky. But I had an accident where I rolled my car over, and then I had to have a pacemaker fitted when I was in America, and I was there for a year and a half. And after that, I thought to myself, I couldn't sit at work very easily because my back was so painful. And then I'd had this happen, and I thought, life's short. I need to do the things that I love. So I decided to change tack completely, and quit this company that I'd set up. And I didn't really enjoy it, because it was got to the point where I'd grown it to like 130 people, I think, and it was really successful. But that was successful, but I didn't feel like there was any success because I just didn't enjoy it. So I made a really tough decision. I mean, a lot of people probably look at me and think, oh, it was easy for him because he probably had a reasonable amount of money from this successful software company I set up. But actually, it really wasn't, because when you have a little bit of money, and I did, then, to suddenly say, I am not going to earn anything from that, then you've got a lifestyle that you've become, familiar with. And it was literally having a conversation to my wife saying, if I do this, you're going to have to go back to work. She wasn't at work, and she enjoyed the fact she wasn't at work. So it was a really tough family decision to make. But it was a really good decision. And I ended up, making the right one, and doing YouTube. And I think video, and the reasons it was probably successful was, I mean, I don't want to say luck, but it feels to me like it's luck, but I don't think it was luck. I think I tried really hard. I'd done a lot of marketing stuff with my software company, and all the skills from marketing I put into it. I knew a lot about videography. I presented a lot as a CEO of a software company a lot, so I felt like I could present myself pretty well on video. And I think all those things came together to have and I got in at the right time, and all those things came to have a successful channel. But I don't know, I mean, there's so many people I know that didn't have as much success, and I feel a bit guilty in that respect, but it worked.
We all have our own stories, don't we, on our own kind of direction, and I really love how you went back there kind of to the CEO stuff and could really see how things you'd learned through your company helped play into what you've done on YouTube, because I'm kind of realizing that in my work now as well. I'm kind of going away from the traditional photography and now speaking more about the well-being aspects of photography and the creative aspects of photography that link back to my nursing career. I began life in the well-being health industry, organizations, and it's like I'm now kind of going back to that, but in a totally different standpoint from the creative perspective, and finding alternative ways, I guess, of helping people with their health issues, which I think it's why it's really interesting actually to speak to you, because it's clear that you've gone through a lot of things in your life with your accident, your pacemaker, your back issues and everything, and just seeing actually how changing your life and starting to do something that you love with your videography, your photography, getting a much deeper connection to nature, moving back to England as well, and coming to the kind of country that you're really inspired by in many ways, how it's just had such a profound impact on your life, but also how it's allowed you to keep going, because there's a lot of people who have health problems and they really struggle. They just, their whole life just falls apart and they can't get out of that rut. And you can see there in what you just spoke about that you had to make some very tough decisions, and to do what you're doing now. But when you look at actually without doing that, it's almost like, where would you be now? You know, you would probably be in a much worse off position in many, many respects.
I definitely would. And I probably didn't realise it quite at the time, but I mean, you know, this was a company that I set up, this software company, but obviously you go through a stage of investment and it sort of it never felt like mine at the end. And I don't think I was doing a particularly good job as a CEO. And I think that was putting a lot of pressure on me because, you know, getting a company like that to that stage and then getting it to the next stage takes a certain type of person. And I'm not a ruthless person. I feel like I'm quite a kind person, and I'm not saying that every CEO of a software company needs to be ruthless, but I think you've got to have a certain type of mentality, and I didn't have that mentality. And that was really, you know, probably, I feel like I'm quite strong mentally, but I think it was damaging my mental health, and I just wasn't happy doing it at all. And from the outside, people probably saw us, and my family's living in San Francisco. It looks like the most ideal lifestyle. But if you're not happy in what you do, then the best advice I could give anybody is change it. But it's not that easy to do that, is it? It's so easy to say change it, but to actually have the bravery to do that is quite difficult, I think. And I do, you know, I do see how people get stuck in a rut, and that must be very, very difficult.
Yeah, and the more you spiral down that way, the harder it is to get out. It really is. Yeah, some people kind of maybe think they have to give up everything and move on, but it's almost about seeing where you have these skills from your previous jobs and everything that you can then almost repurpose into doing something. Like with you, it was software, almost technology, business, but you're now doing kind of the whole software, technology and business in some ways, but in a totally different remit and one that you really, really enjoy. So yeah, repurposing, I think, is maybe the best way of saying to people, if they kind of feel like they're stuck in a rut and they don't know how to get out of it, you know, what are they currently doing? What parts of that do they love and what parts of it do they hate? And if they think about the things that they love, what other places can they you know, build on that to create a much more rewarding work life? Yeah.
I think that's so true. I mean, it's interesting because I speak to my kids about doing the things that they love, and you know, it's difficult when you're starting, you know, choosing a university place, or you know, early in your life. I think you tend to look at the things that, oh, how much money does that earn, or will that get me a good job, you know, whatever a good job is, and you go down that sort of route potentially. But I always say to my kids, just do the thing you enjoy. Don't even consider how much money you're going to earn. That just doesn't matter, because if you do something well, you'll enjoy it and want to do it more. Then you'll do it better, and then people will take notice, and you'll be good. You'll be good at something, and then you'll be valuable. But the most important thing is just doing it for yourself. And I think that's what I did with my photography and my YouTube. And then since I've done that, I've wanted to do it more, and then it's got better, and now I've got to the situation where I can just really do the things that I want to do, and that might be less workshops, because I really enjoy workshops, but they're sometimes quite difficult if I'm doing them all the time, because I've got to drive a lot, and that's bad on my back. So I can make those choices that then means that everything gets better. But it's like you say, it is difficult to see that sometimes.
Yeah. And they say, don't they, that if you do what you love in life, then you have more enthusiasm, you want to put more effort, more time, more energy into it. And then in time, the money and everything just comes back to you. You know, it's taken me, 5 years since beginning what I'm doing to now get to a stage where I'm earning enough money that I can live on my own and have the lifestyle I want. But it's taken 5 years of finding myself, of trying different things, having loads of failures. But that's the thing, you can always just repurpose things. Okay, that didn't work, let's try this. But all in that time, you're just finding yourself more and more and more, and you eventually get to the stage where you're doing what you love. So yeah, brilliant. So
yeah, that's exactly right.
Brilliant. So very wise and knowledgeable things there that I hope people will get some benefit from. So thank you so much for your time today, Nigel. It's been an absolute joy speaking with you. I just don't want you sitting too much longer because of your back. But before we say goodbye, if anyone wants to check out your work and isn't already aware of your YouTube channel and everything, where can people find you if they'd like to connect with you?
Just search my name on YouTube and you'll find my latest videos. And yeah, come and follow me on Instagram as well. I post lots on Instagram, all my stories from my daily life. Pebbles features a lot.
Yeah, Pebbles, your dog. Oh, so cute. I love how she makes appearances in your videos and that regularly. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this week's podcast. It really does mean the world to me. If you'd like to get further involved with the Photographic Connections community, you can head over to photographicconnections.com now for full details. And now that this podcast has come to an end, there's only one thing left for you to do. It's time to pick up your camera and head outdoors. There's so many incredible photographic opportunities just waiting for you to discover.